Andy Bernick.
Andy Bernick, home.
Thank you. Pamela Pineros.
Pamela Pineros, home.
Thank you. Leah Lambus Skidmore.
Leah Lambus Skidmore, home.
Thank you. Larry Dempsey. Larry, are you out there? Moving on. Jane Kelly.
Jane Kelly, home.
Thank you. Jeff Safel.
Jeff Safel's Sona, home.
Home.
Hello. I have you both as here and at, well, participating from home. Thank you. Tom Rickard. Tom, are you with us? Moving on. Cindy Potter, I don't expect. Cindy. Jim Drinkard.
Jim Drinkard at home.
By the way, Ed,
Thank
Tom Rickard's showing as being on the
Yeah.
list.
I just got my audio. Thank you.
Ah, okay, Tom. So could you state your name and where you are?
Tom Rickard from home.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I mentioned Cindy Potter was not with us. She has an alternate, Jay Dick. Jay, are you with us? Moving on. Rosemary Clay. Rosemary? No. Liz Murphy, alternate. Moving on.
Can you hear me?
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
here.
Is this Liz? Is this Liz?
It is, and I believe that Rosemary is trying to get in, but I will be remaining for the meeting if you need me.
Thank you. Holly Doherty. Holly, are you with us? Don't see your name. Moving on. Don Tennant. Don.
Don Tennant at home.
Thank you. Carl Sell. Not sure I've seen Carl's name. Moving on. Marta Morrissey. Marta, are you out there?
Yes, Marta Morrissey from home.
Thank you. Steve Levinson, I don't believe is with us. Steve? Moving on. I'm here. Ed Joseph from home. Tom Sachs.
Tom Sachs from home.
Thank you. Jim McCracken.
Jim McCracken from home.
Jim, could you say it again, please? We're a little hard to hear you.
Okay, I'll try. Jim McCracken, home. Is that better?
Thank you. That actually it was. Yes. John Tomko.
John Tomko, home.
Thank you. Richard Drezner.
Richard Drezner from home.
Thank you. And last but not least, John Gagnon.
John Gannon from home.
Thank you. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. And our quorum is 12. So that is great. All right. So at this point, I will pass the virtual gavel to our Vice Chair, Tom Sachs, that I may be heard to make a few necessary motions.
This is Tom Sachs. Do we have any motions from the floor?
Yes, we do. I move that each member's voice may be adequately heard by each other member of the Lee District SSPA Task Force.
Second.
Is there a second?
Yeah, there was a second. Yeah.
Yes.
Favor?
McCracken, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions?
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Next, I move that the state of emergency caused by the COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for the task force to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meeting, and that as such, the Freedom of Information Act's usual procedures, which require the physical assembly of the task force and the physical presence of the public, cannot be implemented safely or practically. I further move that the task force may conduct this meeting electronically through a dedicated video and audio conferencing line, and that the public may access this meeting by registering through the meeting link on the Track a Plan Amendment page of the SSPA website at https://www.fairfaxcounty.gov/planning-amendments/SSPA/south/track-plan-amendment, or by calling 1-844-621-3956, TTY 711, and entering access code 2334-963-3381. It is so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, I move that this meeting must be conducted online during the current emergency in order to discharge the lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities of the SSPA task force.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you. I'll take back the virtual gavel. Thank you, Tom. Okay. So up until this point, we've not been keeping or approving minutes of our meetings. I initially saw no problem with this practice since our meetings are recorded and can be watched in full by anyone wishing to do so. However, it has come to my attention that we do need to keep minutes. So I sent out a set of a draft of the minutes from the last meeting to all members of the task force. I want to thank our secretary, Leah Landba-Skidmore, for the first draft of those minutes. And I don't, unless there's some discussion, I will entertain a motion to approve them.
Mrs. Gannon, so moved.
Oh, I should mention that John Tomko had sent me a message suggesting that it wasn't clear that that a quorum had been established. So I'm happy to add language saying the quorum was established with 17 members and 1 alternate present at roll call for a total of 18, and then 3 additional members joined after roll call, and 2 members were absent. So I can add that in.
I agree to that, and I still motion for approval.
Right.
Gannon.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Liz
Second.
Murphy, second.
Thank you. All in favor of approving the minutes, please say yes.
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 Thank you. Any opposed, please say no. Hearing none. Any abstentions? Hearing none. So the minutes of the last meeting are approved. Thank you. So I also sent out to everybody a draft of the public meeting policy statement. As you all know by now, we are only permitted to meet electronically because of the county's declaration of emergency related to the COVID-19 pandemic. Ordinarily, the Virginia Freedom of Information Act would require us to meet in person. It is likely that at some point in the coming months, the declaration of emergency will lapse and we will be required to start meeting in person. The Freedom of Information Act was recently amended in a way which will allow for the electronic participation of a limited number of members of the task force once we are required to meet in person. In order for this to happen, however, the terms of the amended Freedom of Information Act must be strictly complied with. The Act requires that we adopt a public meeting policy statement, which establishes a procedure whereby members of the task force can apply to the chair before each meeting to participate electronically. The procedure must require prior permission from the chair for electronic participation, and such permission can be granted in two circumstances. First, for members who cannot meet in person due to health concerns relating to either their own health or the health of someone for whom they are a caregiver, electronic participation may be approved for an unlimited number of meetings. Second, for members who cannot meet in person due to other personal reasons, electronic participation may be approved for a maximum of 2 meetings each calendar year, or for 25% of the meetings in a given calendar year, whichever number is greater. In any case, members participating electronically cannot be counted toward a quorum, which means that a quorum must attend in person for the meeting to go forward. Once an in-person quorum is established, then the members participating electronically may participate fully in the business of the meeting. Adoption of this public meeting policy statement must be reflected in our minutes, and any permissions to participate electronically that are either granted or denied by the chair must also be reflected in the minutes. This is why we have begun keeping minutes. The county attorney's office has drafted a public meeting policy statement for us. I distributed that draft policy statement to members of the task force. My hope is that we can officially adopt this policy statement tonight so that we can move to meeting in person as seamlessly as possible when the need arises. If there are any questions regarding this public policy statement, please ask them now, and then hopefully we can move to a motion to adopt it. Does
When did
anybody
you
have any
send that?
questions or comments?
When did you send that?
I sent that, was it
I got it Thursday, the
Thursday?
11th. Yeah,
Thursday, I believe, yeah.
Because I don't have that with all the information.
It came with the Brandon Avenue Statement of Principles.
I don't have that either.
Okay.
It was,
I don't see that.
Let
I
me go
received it
check.
either.
See if I
Well,
can pull it
I
up.
the
can,
title of it is SSPA Task Force Meeting Monday night. And it has a long body in the email body. Adoption of public meeting policy, the SSPA Task Force Meeting Monday night, further consideration of Brandon Avenue, Van Dorn.
I have an email that's got some information saying that those are the topics we're going to be reviewing, but I don't have
Attached to that was the Brandon Avenue Statement of Principles and the policy for remote participation draft.
Don't see the attachment, so let me take another look.
yeah. Carol, I can try to send that to you. Let's see. Carol, can you quickly give me your email address?
B, D is in Delta, I, N.
I got it. Okay, I'm sorry. It just popped up. Okay. Sorry, everybody. Just give me a moment while I send this email to Carol. Okay, Carol, I just sent it to you,
Okay,
along with the statement of principles for the possible consensus as well. So does anybody have any comments or questions regarding this policy statement?
I just have one question I'd like to clarify. If approval is granted for somebody, for whatever the reason, I don't want to get into that, to participate remotely, are they allowed, if they're a member of the task force, are they voting on remotely then? Or do you still, once we go back in person, is only in person for voting?
No, they're allowed to fully participate.
So they count towards the quorum and they are.
They do not count toward the quorum, however.
Oh.
That's
Okay, that was
the
going through
problem.
that. I was trying to understand. I thought that's what it said. It doesn't count towards the quorum. So in other words, not everybody can give a call, not show up because if.
Exactly. We will need a quorum of people to show up in person.
And that is
then-
what, 30 people?
No, our quorum is 12.
12, oh, okay.
And then beyond
Steve was going,
that, beyond that, we can have other members participate remotely. But if we don't get the 12 in person, then we can't have a meeting.
and how are we handling the public? Did I miss that in there? Can they still call in remotely, or if there's no remote need, then there's nothing, the public has to come in person?
The public, I'm not sure if it's in the policy statement, but the public would be welcome in person or electronically. I don't see, if we have an electronic hookup, I don't see any reason why the public
There's
couldn't participate
But if
electronically
there's no need
as
for
well.
electronics, if everybody decides they can come, they wouldn't set up one just for the public, right?
Hadn't thought about that.
That's okay. You have time to figure that out, but I guess if we're gonna vote on it, we should know. That's all.
Yeah.
I can see it when I was reading through it.
Well, I don't think this answers every last question. I had some questions for the county attorney's office regarding how to interpret certain things, and it's like they were like, well, gee, we never thought of that. And but it was something that was unlikely to matter. So
Yeah, probably for the next couple of months, it's unlikely to matter at least, but
yes, and
I'm
I'm hopeful that maybe we won't ever have to meet in person, but we need to be prepared.
I heard the chairman, McKay, make the comment that they're hoping for public participation by phone in public hearings and that to continue, because they find it is more convenient for a person to wait for them to get a phone call than 4 hours at the stadium, at the auditorium. So I didn't know if that meant we would still provide a call-in for the public to participate or not.
I would expect that the answer is yes, we would. Since we're going to have to be set up for remote participation, why, we should certainly extend that to the public. Anybody else with questions or comments?
Ed, I'll just add that both Carl and Rosemary are now in the panel. So I think that gets you up to 21. And I received an email from Larry Dempsey. He was having issues joining the meeting, so I sent him the attendees link per his request, and I'm looking for him to join us. Hopefully, when he gets his issue straightened out.
Thank you, Steve.
No problem.
I think that only actually brings our attendance up by 1 because Rosemary's alternate was already in the meeting. But it doesn't matter, we have quorum.
That's correct. I'm sorry.
Okay,
So
back to the policy statement. Any questions or comments before
I
ask
have
for a
some.
motion?
I have, that where it talks about process to confirm, that if you're asking for a reason for personal, you have to have some sort of validation, or if you, some sort of, what does it say? Approval.
I think that's answered under D, isn't it? Where it says the requesting member is not obligated or obliged to provide independent verification regarding the temporary or permanent disability.
That's for health reasons,
Oh,
but not for personal reasons. It's not obligated to provide independent verification regarding temporary or permanent disability or other medical, but it says that you can also request for personal reasons. But
In
something
paragraph C, it says that person if requesting member is unable to physically attend the meeting due to a personal matter, the requesting member must state with specificity the nature of the personal matter.
Right.
It doesn't say that any verification is needed, and therefore, I think the answer to your question is it's not needed.
Okay, but they have to tell you why,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
it is that is preventing them from attending.
Yeah. All right, so unless there are any other questions or comments, I will invite a motion to approve. Motion to adopt, that is.
Gannon, I motion to approve.
Thank you, Jana. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right. If you agree to the motion to adopt this policy statement as the policy of the task force, please indicate by saying yes.
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 If you are voting against adopting this, please indicate by saying no. I'm hearing no responses as no. And is there anyone abstaining? Are there any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes, and this policy statement has been adopted as a policy of the task force. Thank you. Okay. All right. Just want to give you a quick update on Potomac Steel. I've just been informed that Supervisor Lusk will be making a motion at the next Board of Supervisors meeting to indefinitely defer this plan amendment, which we also calling the I-95 Corridor Area Land Unit K South Amendment. The nominator has changed his plans to the extent that a plan amendment is no longer necessary. So that is off our plate. So turning to tonight's meeting. Tonight we will continue our consideration of the Brandon Avenue Plan Amendment. First, staff will review the goals of a commercial revitalization district. After that, we will try to agree on a statement of principles to represent the consensus of the task force regarding Brandon Avenue. The Brandon Avenue applicant has received permission from the Board of Supervisors to proceed concurrently on this plan amendment we've been considering, as well as a rezoning application. They have reached a point where they need to get a firm sense of what the plan amendment might look like in order to proceed with the rezoning application. Ultimately, we will be asked to vote on language for the plan amendment, but we are not yet ready to do that. The goal for tonight is to reach consensus on a statement of principles to indicate the direction of the plan amendment we will later recommend by formal vote. The statement of principles for Brandon Avenue has been drafted by staff for the consideration of the task force. That draft statement of principles was sent to each member of the task force. Tonight, we will have a brief period for public comment on the draft, and then the task force will begin its discussion. During the discussion of this draft, I will ask each member to indicate how they feel about individual provisions of this statement by using the chat function to type green for those in support of the provision, red for those against, or yellow for those who have concerns but are not set against. Staff has suggested this system, which would normally involve raising color-coded cards at an in-person meeting, as a method to reach consensus. If we reach consensus on Brandon Avenue, that will conclude our discussion of this proposed amendment until plan language can be drafted consistent with our consensus for our consideration in a final vote. As always, interested members of the public are encouraged to provide us with their comments. The time for public comments during meetings may be limited by the need to take care of our business and will vary from meeting to meeting depending on the time available. Public comments can always be submitted for the consideration of the task force by email, leedist, L-E-E-D-I-S-T, at fairfaxcounty.gov. Before each Monday meeting, comments received by Friday at 10 a.m. will be distributed to the task force members prior to the Monday meeting. With that, I turn the floor over to staff to discuss the goals of the Commercial Revitalization District, and after that, we'll turn our attention to the draft statement of principles for Brandon Avenue. So take it away.
Ed, this is
assume it's
Tom. I have a
David.
question.
Sure, Tom, go ahead.
What if the committee decides not to approve an amendment? Shouldn't we take a vote on that first? You're
Well,
acting as if it's a fait accompli that we're going to approve it.
Well, I mean, this is a draft of what, I mean, the committee might, or the task force might decide that this draft is totally not what we want, in which case it won't, you know, that will be reflected, you know, the consensus will be no, you know. So this is just, you know, a document for discussion, and we'll see where that discussion goes. If the consensus is that we don't want to adopt an amendment, then that will be the consensus, and that will replace what's been written here.
Okay.
So this is just a vehicle for discussion at this point. You know, if the task force agrees that it's what we want, then that's what we want, and if it's not, then it's not. All right. So I will turn things over. I think it's David. You're up? Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And can someone make me a presenter, please? Steve will be with you momentarily.
You should have the privilege now, Dave.
Yeah, I do have it now. Thank you, Steve.
Yes, sorry.
Oh, no worries. All right. I am David Stenson with the Department of Planning and Development, and I'm additionally Laura Arsenault, Steve Waller, Doug Loescher, and Liz Haig, also from the Department of Planning and Development, and Farouk Hezagen and Tom Burke from the Fairfax County Department of Transportation are in attendance this evening. So tonight, again, we'll continue to review the proposed plan amendment for 6235 and 6245 Brandon Avenue. This evening, we will provide an overview of the revitalization goals of the Springfield CBC and review the draft consensus statements regarding the proposed self-storage use and potential community benefits. We will then open the floor to public questions and comments and conclude with a task force discussion of the draft consensus statements. So I will now Doug Loescher will provide a brief overview of the commercial revitalization district goals of the Springfield CBC.
Great. Thank you, David. And hello, everyone. Our last two conversations we had in the previous meetings, I think was really helpful for staff to understand the questions that task force members might have. And tonight we wanted to spend just a few minutes addressing a few questions that were asked at the last meeting. As we discussed the urban design issues and considerations for the site, there were questions that came up at the end of the last meeting to really come back to talk about what the history of the revitalization goals were for this area, and to understand how this site and parcel fits in with the overall revitalization goals. So we wanted to start first by talking about both the Community Business Center and the Community Revitalization District, and talk a bit about the distinctions of that, and then what is actually planned and envisioned in the comprehensive plan for each of those land units. So as you'll see here, the boundaries for both the CBC and the CRD are really the same. Land units A through G comprise both areas. The Community Business Center, as you know, is defined by the comprehensive plan. And really, these are typically older areas that are more community or neighborhood serving. They generally have a mix of uses. And in some cases, and Springfield is one of those cases, there are specific areas that are planned as a town center or a urban village type of setting. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. The Community Revitalization District is actually a zoning overlay district, and the focus there is more on encouraging economic development. There are some special conditions that come with that help to facilitate development. But I think importantly for our conversation, and this is what we talked about in the last two meetings, is that there are urban design standards that are applied both for the public realm, which is the streetscape, as well as the private realm, which is development projects. So David, you want to go to the next slide? There we go. So there are quite a few goals and objectives within the plan, but I've just pulled out 5 here that relate and are pertinent to the conversation I think we're going to be having. And these are both policy plan goals for revitalization and for land use. There's a lot of text there, and I would say we can just zero in on what is underlined. First and foremost, the intent is to encourage development and projects that will prevent any deterioration in the commercial areas. And so when we look at projects and proposals, that is one of the standards or lenses that we'll be viewing that through. Secondly is to encourage growth and development that really thinks about the specific character and identity of the community. Also to diversify the range of uses and activities that can serve the community in the district. And then finally, to use those urban design standards to help create a more cohesive and compatible district, and to increase the functionality of the area and really give it an appropriate character. So as we go through the process, we as staff will be looking at some of these general standards to evaluate projects and proposals that go forward. Next slide. So this is unfortunately a very content-heavy slide. And let me just kind of talk about it briefly, and we won't get too focused on the numbers right now. But there are 3 land units that are important to consider for this site. The first is land unit A, of course, which is where this parcel is actually located. And that is the kind of pizza wedge on the upper right here. Land Unit A is planned for the highest intensity, 1.6 FAR, and actually specific projects and proposals can go over that, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But this land unit is also the most diverse in terms of the uses that are allowed. Literally the full range: office, retail, hotel, residential. There is also specific square footage that is considered for each of those uses. And that's what the numbers on the upper left are. And I should say land unit A, it probably should not say proposed, but it probably is more like planned potential, is envisioned as compared to what is there existing. So for example, hotel, the plan allows for up to about 445,000 square feet of space. There's actually currently about 296,000. Office, there's a much bigger delta. There's up to 1.3 million square feet of space that is envisioned in the plan for land unit A, and currently there's 263,000. In terms of retail, we actually currently have more retail than is envisioned in the plan. So there wouldn't be any additional retail considered typically. And then finally, while there are no residential units in land unit A, the plan could allow for up to 1,900 units. So that's land unit A. If you look at land unit B to the left, you'll see a much lower intensity, just 0.5 FAR, fewer uses, primarily retail with some office and residential. And then land unit C, which is a small notch there where there's one of the yellow dots, is envisioned mostly for office with support retail, also much lower FAR. So in addition to those general considerations, there are some specific parcels that are identified for unique uses or intensities. And this is where, for example, when you look at the yellow hotel dots, these are plan envisioned for either side of Amherst Avenue, which is actually where the hotels were developed. It allowed for a much higher intensity, in this case, up to 2.5 FAR. And you'll also see a blue dot, which is where the current parcel under consideration is, and the plan allows for an office use up to 125,000 square feet and up to 160 feet in height. There's also a smaller office carve out in the lower left here with an asterisk, and you'll see that is an office at a much lower FAR of 0.35, and there's actually an existing office building there. And then finally, there's some specific residential callouts in this land unit B. You'll see the green dots where the Springfield Garden Apartments are currently. That calls for residential units up to 30 units per acre. And then further to the north, you'll see at Commerce and Amherst, that triangular area is envisioned to have potentially elderly housing units up to 45 units per acre. So there's some very specific callouts and then very general guidance that's identified in the plan. Next slide, please. So I wanted to just compare that with the existing conditions. So we can see here, and David, I don't know if you can use your cursor to kind of just identify where this site is for the plan amendment in that general area there. And you'll see that while the plan called for a core area with an intense mixed use that primarily happens between Commerce and Old Keene Mill, with Bland Street somewhat as a spine for that area. Currently, there's two large shopping centers, the Springfield Plaza, with a large amount of surface parking area, and the Tower Shopping Center further to the east. So next slide, please. in previous plans, and this is a Urban Land Institute report from 2005, there was envisioned to have 2 town squares or town centers. One was on the right, you'll see Midtown Springfield, and this is where many of the task force members have much more experience with this than I do. I'm relatively new, so I only know this historically, which was a mixed-use development with high-rise residential towers that were planned for that end of Bland Street. To the left or to the west, you'll see the town square identified, which is currently where the Springfield Plaza surface parking lot exists. So this idea envisions kind of 2 core areas, again, along Bland Street. And David, if you could go to the next slide. This will show how that has been institutionalized in the comprehensive plan. This is the framework plan for connectivity, and you'll see that it primarily identifies the road and pedestrian connections that continue forward this idea of a square or town center where Springfield Plaza is. And then, of course, you'll recognize we had shown part of this in previous meetings when we talked about the urban design considerations for the site, such as the gateway into the CRD across the bridge and the kind of placemaking opportunity site there at the corner of Brandon and Commerce. So next slide, please. So this is the last slide, and this is just to summarize what actually has taken place as compared to the plan vision. Roughly in the last 20 years, there's been several larger developments. The Town Place Suites, and I might have this date a little off. I believe it was around 2000 that it was either entitled or developed. And you'll see number 2, the Midtown proposal, which actually did not move forward. Number 3 and number 4 are the other hotels that we discussed, the Residence Inn and Homewood Suites. Number 5 is the Lidl grocery store that opened in the last few years. And then finally, number 6 is the Hampton Inn that we had gone through the entitlement process, but unfortunately, as a result of the pandemic, is currently not moving forward. And then finally, looking forward, the parking garage, which is on Old Keene Mill at Springfield Boulevard, will be constructed in the next few years. So those are the major developments. The other thing that is noted there is significant office vacancies, both the office building on Old Keene Mill at Backwick Road, as well as the office building on Augusta Drive, has been partially or entirely vacant for a period of time. So this really kind of gives a snapshot of what the market responses have been to the comprehensive plan over this period of time. And we thought it would be useful for consideration by the task force as they look at these additional proposals. So we'd be happy to answer any questions, but we really wanted to just address the questions that the task force members had about what was planned and envisioned and how this proposal would fit into it. So David, I'll turn it back over to you unless there's any questions.
Thanks, Doug. Now we're going to move on to a consensus building exercise regarding the proposed self-storage use and the community benefits that could result from the implementation of this use. We're going to review the following draft statements, which were distributed to the task force last week in the draft statement of principles document. The document includes 5 statements relating to potential community benefits. The potential community benefits include first floor uses, design and architecture, streetscapes, bike and pedestrian facilities, and placemaking and gateway features. After we review the draft statements of principles, the floor will be open for public comments, and then we will conclude with a task force discussion.
David, do you have a slide showing the draft statement so that everyone can read it?
I do. I was going to go over each statement on a slide, which the draft statements. This is the first one. The draft statements regarding community benefits are based on the following statement, which pertains to use. And I will read the statement for those listening over the phone. Given the challenges of the site, self-storage as a use could positively impact the surrounding area, depending on the type of community benefits it can bring. Next, we're going to review the draft statements that focus on the options for community benefits that could result from the implementation of the proposed self-storage use. These draft statements are based on ideas from discussions at the last few task force meetings. So the first draft statement regarding potential community benefits is for first floor uses, and it reads as follows. Alternative first floor uses such as retail use, business incubator, artist spaces, or a community space with reduced rents on this site should contribute to the vitality of this area. The second statement focuses on design and architecture of the proposed self-storage facility, and the draft statement is as follows. The final design of the self-storage building should be appropriate for the Springfield Community Business Center and compatible with the design aesthetics of surrounding buildings such as the adjacent hotel. The third statement focuses on streetscape improvements, and the draft statement is as follows. An enhanced streetscape such as shade trees or a wider sidewalk on Brandon Avenue, the northern access street, or Commerce Street would contribute to the goals of the Springfield CBC. The fourth statement focuses on bike and pedestrian facilities along Augusta Drive, and the draft statement is as follows. Installation of a shared use path along Augusta Drive, accompanied by a bike station on the property, would provide better connectivity to the adjacent neighborhoods. And the final statement we will review focuses on placemaking and gateway features, and is as follows. A placemaking feature such as a fountain, public art, or gateway signage at the intersection of Commerce Drive and Brandon Avenue would enhance the community identity. And before I open the floor to the community, I would also like to provide the nominator of this plan amendment the opportunity to provide any comments regarding the draft statement.
This is Lynn Strobel on behalf of the nominator. I think that if it's okay with the task force, we have a very brief presentation that Kathy Taylor will provide. Is that okay?
Sure, go ahead. That's fine.
And I also want to say that, this is very important because the nominator has been asked to submit a rezoning application concurrently with the plan nomination. So it's, that's a very big task with expense. And that's why we really would appreciate the feedback, hopefully that we will get tonight from the task force. So thank you.
So before we jump into that, if I could just, I didn't know that there was going to be another presentation. So part of the reason for presenting these principal statements is to provide some potential guidance for the applicant who is looking to submit this rezoning. These are benefits that would come with the self-storage, and so it's not quite as portrayed before as whether you're deciding tonight up or down on this plan amendment. It's simply saying that were there to be a self-storage use, these are the kinds of things that would be expected. So I think earlier someone commented like, wait, what if we don't want this plan amendment? Well, that's really not what we're trying to get at through this. So I just wanted to make that clarification.
I think that's helpful. I think I need to be given the presenter option. I'm not able to share my screen.
Just a second, Kathy.
Thank you.
You should have that privilege now.
I do, thank you. Okay. Sorry, let me just get to the beginning. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm not going to belabor a lot of the points that staff went into. I think I just kind of wanted to reemphasize a few things that they had mentioned about this site specifically. So as they had shown where the site is located, I just wanted to highlight the 2 points that these conditions, land unit A is within the core area of the Springfield CBC, where that would expand into a community serving urban village, and any redevelopment within the urban village should act as a catalyst for additional and complementary redevelopment in the area. As staff had mentioned in that draft statement, the site is quite challenged, and so its existing conditions, at the periphery, as you can see, of land unit A, as well as sitting right next to Interstate 95, can significantly limits the uses that can be located on the site. And then as staff also showed, just sort of those existing conditions, the site right now is vacant. It has been for many years, which does lead us to our proposal, which we believe could be a community serving use that serves the needs of the surrounding neighborhoods, as well as encourages further redevelopment of this urban village concept. So it wouldn't be your typical industrially located self-storage, but would be in fact a mixed-use development that could include a component of retail and community-oriented mix of uses in a pedestrian-oriented neighborhood. So in response to staff's draft statement of principles, I can go quickly through each one of these. I'm just highlighting the 5 that he had mentioned: first floor uses, the design and architecture. We look generally, or staff look generally, at urban design elements, including streetscape, bike pedestrian facilities, as well as placemaking and gateway features. So as everyone has heard in previous presentations, the intentional incorporation of a broad mix of unique and interesting ground floor uses at the site will encourage an active street front. So we have been mindful of how we can enhance walkability in the pedestrian realm. We do believe that this proposal would promote commerce and vitality in the area by integrating alternative uses to that first floor. As staff mentioned, that could include retail, stores, business incubators. We've mentioned these maker spaces, art studios, community rooms that would be offered at below market rate rents, as we have discussed previously. In terms of the architecture, actually, let me go back because the architecture is helpful with that picture above. While we do understand that it's a work in progress, the proposed use would introduce an urban self-storage facility that would be 100% climate controlled. It would be an attractive design that would incorporate four-sided architecture, high quality building materials on all elevations, and a visual interest. So in terms of compatibility, as we had shown previously, in terms of massing and scale, the building would be designed to be compatible with the surrounding area, including that adjacent hotel. So it wouldn't be looming or something that would appear out of place with the surrounding facilities, which includes that. And taken as a whole, the nominator does believe that the high quality design that we are proposing can fit within the context of the Springfield CBC. So in terms of streetscape concepts, the existing conditions along Brandon Avenue and Commerce Street, you can see here, are very well maintained with the existing pedestrian walkways and street trees that line both streets. And at this point, as we continue to evaluate for the rezoning application, adding additional street trees along these areas would be precluded by the presence of the overhead utilities that you see there on Brandon Avenue, and then the Commerce Street Bridge overpass. But notwithstanding that, as we can see in the subsequent slide, the nominator is proposing to improve that intersection of Brandon and Commerce, which has the most visibility. And we would enhance that streetscape area with creative placemaking and gateway features. So along Augusta Drive, as you can see in the pictures, these pictures as well as what staff had shown, that area lacks any type of pedestrian improvements, sidewalks, or other pedestrian amenities. However, the applicant would be proposing streetscape improvements that would create a high quality, attractive, functional, and safe environment for the pedestrian, bicyclist, transit rider, or other non-motorized vehicle user. And the nominator would be improving the multimodal circulation by providing bike and pedestrian facilities, as staff had mentioned in that statement. And this would provide better connectivity to the adjacent neighborhoods. So elements that could be included in that streetscape include, as you can see, underground stormwater management areas, a shared use path, street lighting and native planting, street lighting, I mentioned that, street furniture, such as benches and a bike rack, as well as a bike repair station, which I believe was a suggestion from one of the task force members previously. And finally, the last bullet point, or the last principle that was discussed, was the placemaking and gateway features. And the nominator does recognize the location of this site as a gateway location. And that map in the upper left hand side shows where gateways or placemaking features may be appropriate. And first, understanding that the plan does recognize that Brandon Avenue and the Commerce Street intersection is a placemaking opportunity site. And so the nominator has developed a concept, as you see there on the bottom, which would improve that existing streetscape condition by providing a larger plaza gathering space with placemaking features such as native landscaping, new pedestrian amenities, benches, bike racks. The nominator may also consider public art in that plaza where appropriate. In addition, the nominator also believes that the building itself may be, in its proposed location, may be recognized as a gateway. And the nominator advances this idea by, incorporating prominent architectural features. As we mentioned, this is a high quality building that's attractive in terms of the building design. And another feature that also may be considered to promote the idea of being a gateway itself, the building itself, is a possible creation of a mural, possibly on one of the building facades. So all these features would effectively assist to create that sense of place and enhance the pedestrian corridor of this site within the greater Springfield CBC. So in the end, the applicant has reviewed these draft principles, and we do understand and appreciate getting more feedback. But we, at least at a starting point, the applicant believes that we are able to provide a lot of the various elements that are being sought to help promote the Springfield CBC and the Commercial Revitalization District. And so we do believe that this is a high quality, attractive building and site design that will promote commerce, enhance the pedestrian realm, encourage multimodal circulation, as well as satisfy local storage demands and ultimately serve the community's needs. So we are, I think there are several people from the applicant's team as well on the line, and Lynn and I are also happy to answer any questions additionally that any task force members may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. So now I'd like to open this up to members of the public for, unfortunately, just a brief period of time. If anybody has any comments regarding these this draft statement of
Do you want to put them up
benefits.
again, David?
Yes, I will do that. Steve, can you give me the sharing privileges, please? Thank you.
It's probably best to go through them one at a time, if
Well,
possible, or for people to.
Well, I'd like to, yeah, but that's missing the header.
Right. This has the actual the draft statements that are based on potential community benefits.
Okay. All right. All right. So, members of the public, anyone has anything they would like to say? Please
Or
raise
questions.
your electronic hand. If we could review how to raise the hand again. Is it? Can someone can someone review how to raise your electronic hand, please?
Sure. The hand should be at the found at the bottom right hand side of the window, where you should see a small button that looks like it has an icon of a hand on that. Does everyone see that?
Actually, I only see mine when I open up the participant panel. If you go to the right-hand
Yeah.
bottom corner, where it shows a little person, it says participants. When you scroll over, you open that up, and the hand's at the bottom of that on mine.
That's where it is. Yeah. I don't know if attendees have that same display though.
Well, attendees should have access to the chat function, or they can speak.
Yes. Okay. So if any attendee has a question or a comment, please just speak up at this point.
The attendees have to be, I would have to unmute the attendees, but
Okay.
there should be.
We've done this in the past. I don't remember the method.
Yes, there should be a way of finding it at the bottom right hand.
Who?
If they open the chat function up in the participants function.
What are you asking them to do?
So this is
To
just for the
raise their
public.
hands if they have something they wish to say.
This is
Do
for
we
just
see
the
a list
public.
of the public?
Yeah, this is for the attendees. Anybody that came, this is not for the task force discussion at this point. This is just for the attendees and members of the public. So the members of the public should have an opportunity and availability to raise their hand. And it should be under their name on the right-hand side of the screen. There's a little hand and a megaphone and a couple other features.
Okay, that's,
So
thank you. That's what I was,
yeah. So
that's
please,
the information I was looking for. So I see no hands. I will give it another moment for anyone who's a member of the public, an attendee, to electronically raise their hand.
Are you seeing the names of the attendees?
I am seeing the names of the attendees. I am not seeing any hands raised. So that being the case, I guess we'll.
Sorry, Ed, if there's anyone who was called in, I see that there is a caller in the attendees list. So if they are not also joining us by computer or tablet, they can press *3 on their handset, and that would raise their hand too.
Thank you, Steve.
Steve, is there a way we can Ed, is there a way we could unmute everybody in the attendee list for a minute, just to make sure if anybody's having trouble? Steve, I don't know if that's something you can do.
I'm doing it now.
Because then if we have anybody that has any questions or having trouble finding the hand raise function, this is another way to do it. We'll just leave it open for a minute.
Thank you, Laura. That was a good idea.
I see Gail Little has a hand.
I do have a hand.
Well, Gail, I don't see
up.
your hand, but go ahead and speak.
Okay, I hope this is within the scope of the questions that you're asking for. Is this a question about anything to do with the Brandon Avenue presentation?
Well, we're specifically just looking for comments regarding the statement of principles, to the statement of possible benefits, whether there's something that should be added or something that appears here that maybe should not appear here, or whether, but in any case, say whatever you wanted to say.
Here's the question and I'm new to this process. I'm sorry, I've just gotten in on this, but at any rate, I've been following the Brandon Avenue with quite a bit of interest. I'm concerned, or I should be, I'm interested after Doug Loescher's presentations, especially, was Lidl asked about all these things that we're asking the Brandon Avenue people about? I mean, that's within the redevelopment area too. When we put that Lidl, or when the Lidl was put in, was it asked about how compatible it was with surrounding architecture and whether it would bring benefits to the community and whatnot? Is that within the scope of what I'm allowed to ask? If it isn't, ignore it.
Well, it's kind of fun. It's kind of far afield.
Well, we can answer it. It's fine.
Briefly,
The difference,
Yeah,
Gail, who's answering it? The difference, Gail, is that this is a plan amendment, which is a higher bar. If the plan allowed the Lidl use, it didn't require a plan amendment. It did require a zoning action, and yes, we asked for streetscape and underground. We asked for the usual types of benefits through a rezoning. This, however, is the question of whether the use is appropriate, and that's why there's a plan amendment, because it's not allowed under the current plan. And so that's where that's just they're a little bit apples and oranges, but this is a higher bar, if you will.
Basically, Gail, Lidl didn't have to go through this whole process because what they were asking for was already contemplated by the comprehensive plan.
I see. And the architectural style that they used for their building didn't have to agree with anything that was around it, the way this building is being asked to do?
No, there were quite a bit of pushbacks on what they did in the architecture, including how they treated the facade and a number of things. But again, you know, there's always a balancing act on these, on any development case.
Well, thank you, Gail. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but thank you for your input.
You know what? Thank you. I've been very impressed. We may not always agree on the outcome, but I've been very impressed with the care that you take and the respect that you give at your meetings.
Thank you, Gail. All right. Is there anyone else from the public who has something they wish to say? I'm hearing some tones. I have no idea what that means.
Oh, no.
All right. I don't hear anybody else.
Yeah.
Steve? Go ahead.
I was just going to add that after I unmuted everyone, a few guests took it upon themselves to remute themselves. So if no one's speaking up, I'm assuming no one has anything to say.
Well,
I mean, to mute themselves again.
So let's move on to the task force then. And okay. So this process that we're trying to use is something that I'm not particularly familiar with. So if there's, I guess I'll first ask if there's anything anybody on the task force wants to say, and then eventually we can move to discussing the particulars of each statement. Is there anybody?
Do you want me to explain the consensus process?
Yeah, maybe you should. That's a good idea.
Sure, listen, I created a slide for that as well.
Oh,
I'd like to say something about the 5 guiding principles. I have a suggested change. When is the time to do that?
Well, we're gonna.
That's the previous slide.
Well, we will take them each statement at a time. We're just going over, I don't know what all these slides are, but.
And Liz, or when you say take them one at a time, does that includes the overall statement, you know, given the challenges of the site, et cetera? that,
I just made slides to review the community benefits because I see the first statement as basically all the community benefits are kind of predicated on the first statement.
right, but I mean, I think if we're looking for consensus from the task force, you know, we need to first determine whether there's consensus on that.
Well, all
overall
right, so let's
first
go to
statement.
that one. Let's go to that statement and I can just explain, if you could go to that, statement, David.
Sure.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, so yes, as David said, all the other statements are predicated on this basic premise. So it's basically saying if we were to have this use, what are the types of community benefits we would expect? And so this statement also recognizes that there are challenges to the site. We know that it hasn't redeveloped in some time, and that while it's not recommended in the plan, if we were able to achieve certain community benefits, that this is saying that it could have an overall positive impact. So by agreeing to or getting consensus that generally those other statements are appropriate, I think what we're saying is that this could be a positive thing for the surrounding area. It's a depends. The use is positive depending on the benefits. So that's the linkage. Let's go to the first one. You can bring them all up if you want, David. So the way the consensus building works is it's not like you're taking a vote. It's a way to flesh out relative support. So again, when we say green, that means yes, you like the statement or you support it. If you put up yellow, that could mean you could live with it. You maybe don't love it, but you're not gonna oppose it. If you put up a red, then you've got some serious questions about it. You're outright opposed to it. You want to see changes to it. And so by people indicating kind of where they're at with each statement, what we would hope to do is then have a brief discussion and see if we could understand what the concerns are of the yellow or red, let's call them cards, even though you're not holding up cards, and see if we can work on the statement to make it acceptable. And then we'll do the same process for the other 4 statements. Does that make sense to folks, or anybody have questions?
This is Tom Sachs. This statement 1 is different than the previous statement 1 because it doesn't talk about the challenges of the area. So I'm really confused what we're commenting on.
Yeah, I think maybe the confusion is there's an overall header, which it would be useful if it appeared on this screen, but it's not.
But David, how about this?
I think that's what Tom's referring to. It says, given the challenges of the site, self-storage as a use could positively impact the surrounding area depending on the type of community benefits it can bring. And then, you know, I think first
and then these are the benefits. Yeah.
Well, right, but first we have to determine, you know, is there a consensus that self-storage could positively impact the surrounding area depending on the community benefits? So
David,
I think
you
that would be
sent
the
out
first.
Yeah,
you sent
I did.
out the list. Maybe you could just
Yes,
bring that up rather
sure.
than the PowerPoint.
I'll bring that up.
And if I'm
So
not
everybody-
mistaken, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what you were getting at. Am I right about that?
Absolutely. That's exactly what I was getting at.
Okay,
Thank you.
David will bring up the whole thing so people can see it at once. I think that'll be clearer.
this is Laura Arsenault. David and I worked on the PowerPoint presentation, and the idea was that the use was what we would be discussing the whole time. And that's the whole point of the site-specific plan amendment. So while we understand we want to take a general vote on that, we're kind of not at that specific point yet. We're really looking at what community benefits we would need to make this site appropriate, which is why we have that statement kind of separated from the other community benefits, because each of them should be drawing back to the self-storage use as almost a given before any of these community benefits would be appropriate, if that makes sense. But yes, this should help with the discussion.
I don't know that we should take as a given that the task force agrees with that. I mean, perhaps the task force does, but I think that's the first thing that needs to be determined.
Okay, well, let's start there then. That's fine. We do seem linked, but let's have a discussion about the wording or I think what we were going to do is that everybody was going to put in the chat the word red, green, or yellow, and we'll make it about this header statement, and we'll just see where we are, and we'll follow up with questions if anybody has yellow or red. So does that work? Okay, test.
Yes.
Tom says red. Laura Arsenault.
Before each question, I'm going to put in the prompt in the chat so that we can separate which ones we're talking about. Because if we're asking for red, yellow, and green for each question, I just wanted to make sure that was put in there. So I'll be doing that periodically through the night. So it'll be overall statement, and then statement 1, statement 2, statement 3, statement 4, statement 5.
Okay, so I've seen 1 red, 1 green, and 1 red, and now 2 reds, 1 green.
What?
In the chat.
I'm sorry, can I ask what you're looking at? Because that doesn't
Yeah,
show in my
this
chat.
is totally confusing. I'm just like, I don't know what you guys are talking about.
And
Okay.
So let me back up everybody a little.
Lynn, please just let us work this through. Can everybody see where your chat button is?
Yeah.
Okay, and if you click on that, you'll see that some people have written the words. Since we don't each have a color card, you're voting in a sense or weighing in on each statement. If you oppose it, you write the word red. If you support it, you write the word green. If you're kind of indifferent or could live with it, you don't love it, but you won't oppose it, you put yellow.
The problem is that the chat is buried beneath a panelist thing, and you can't even read what's there. I can see a place to enter a chat message, but there is nothing that I can see that anybody else has written.
You can X out of the panelist.
Yeah, you can close the panelist list.
There's an X on it. You can do that.
Yeah, get out of the panelists. You should have chat, and you'll see how people have responded.
Okay, what are they responding to?
So we're responding to the header statement about, given the challenge of the site, self-storage as a use could positively impact the surrounding area depending on the type of community benefits it can bring. And then we're going to go into the 5 potential categories of community benefits. But right now, we're working out this statement. So let's see. Tom Sachs, you put down red. Can you tell us what your concern is?
My concern is that self-storage places are primarily destinations for people. They go there, they do what they're doing, and they leave. I don't see any type of benefit that a self-storage space would bring to Springfield. People aren't going to come there and then go shopping. Generally, they're moving or they're storing stuff, but they're not coming there as a part of their errands they're doing generally. So I would challenge the fact that it would positively impact the surrounding area.
So are you saying you don't see any benefits? No matter, none of these benefits make any difference to you. Is that what you're saying?
Right. I think what's happening is this is being rammed down our throats because the developer wants to build. Whereas if we waited 5, 10, 15 years, whatever, we could get an office building or something that really would have significant impact on the community.
Well, I'm not sure it's being rammed down. I think what we're doing is we're going through a deliberate community process to see if there's some way that we can make the idea of the self-storage more palatable. And that's what remains to be seen. Is there something that can offset the use and make it more palatable to the community? So I don't know that it's being shoved down your throat, but we are doing a community process to deliberate on this. So you basically, none of these benefits would matter because you just really can't see any way that the self-storage would be good for the area. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So let's hear from others. Jim McCracken is also red. Jim?
I'm, I hate to speak in cliches, but looking at Area A, this is in the North 40, and rather than trying to just make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, you've grabbed the sow's nose and shoved it into the picture, and you're going to try to make the sow's nose look pretty with a site improvement on its front end, but you're still trying to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear on the back piece of the property. That's my reaction to this whole thing, and I don't believe I change my position on any of the 5 statements.
Okay, so you're kind of in align with Tom then, that none of these benefits would make any difference to you in terms of this use.
Correct, at this point.
Okay. Let's keep looking here. I see a bunch of greens. Yellow, Lawrence Dempsey. What's your caution there?
I'm just not, I'm sort of going along with Tom that it's not really going to attract people. And the people that do use the self-storage may or may not use the retail that's in the bottom, and the people that use the retail may not use the self-storage. So I just don't think it's going to work 100% the way you think it's going to work.
But you're yellow, so it sounds like you could live with that statement.
I could live with it, but I don't think you're going to reach the goals that you are that you think you're going to reach.
Okay. Okay. All right, let's see. We got some more greens, and then I'm seeing John Tomko is a red. John, do you want to explain your reasoning?
Yes, I'm not really sure how a self-storage enhances community identity. And I'm also not sure how it imparts an appropriate character for the area, because and these are the goals that I saw in one of the earlier slides. So I'm not really sure how appropriate or how character is appropriate and how that is defined. Generally speaking, self-storage is in an industrial area. It's not in an area like this. So just taking the first statement, not even considering the benefits, taking the first statement, I would say that self-storage is not appropriate at all for this area.
Could these benefits, though, if done properly, could they offset that negative?
No.
Okay. Let's see. All right. Sell. Got a lot of reds. Carl, do you want to give us your thinking? Carl, are you there? Carl Sell?
Carl often has a little bit of trouble hitting the right.
Oh,
Yes, I'm
There
here.
we go. There's Carl.
I'm here.
Go ahead, Carl.
I don't see any benefit that we wouldn't indeed. Can you hear me?
you're breaking up a
I
little,
don't see
but
any
yes.
benefit in these things that we wouldn't get under the current plan of CBD. So to introduce itself, we're not in. Pardon? I said, I don't see any extra benefits that we wouldn't get under the current plan or the CBD with these sort of things. These are the sort of things we'd be asking of people who would want to rezone in conformance with the current plan and the CBD. It's not something that would extra benefit to the community, and the community is not interested in it, so I don't see any reason to do it.
Well, I think one of the reasons the supervisor is considering putting this out for consideration is that nothing has happened on this site, that it's not a very, well, it's visible from 95 if it's tall enough, but it's kind of an out of the way site. And it hasn't redeveloped. Now, a lot hasn't redeveloped in Springfield, so, but this, I think that's part of this trade-off, and that's why the statement begins with, given the challenges of the site. You can disagree with that, but that was the premise behind it.
And this is Tom Sachs. That's why I feel it's being pushed down our throats. What's wrong with it not redeveloping until the right developer comes along with the right type of structure that meets the plan guidelines that were set for the redevelopment area?
So this is Laura Arsenault. I wanted to comment on that because this is the entire part of the SSPA process. And when the nomination came through originally, it was passed to be put on the SSPA program for us to look at as a potential use, and it was not adopted, but authorized by the supervisor in June for us to take a further look at. So once again, we're not, as Liz mentioned, we're not trying to force this use on anyone, but staff has been challenged with, if this use moves forward, what can we do to make this a community benefit? So that's what we're asking tonight, other than this basic question, which is the much larger global question on site. We are still at the very beginning, we're like maybe 25% through, but we are at the plan amendment stage of this, determining if it's an appropriate use and what other benefits we can give it to the community. So in no way is this a done deal. I don't want anyone to think that, but we were charged with putting this on the site-specific plan amendment program in the Lee district, looking at analysis, looking at what we thought can make it beneficial, but all that being taken into place and taken into account, if we feel like it's still not appropriate, that's what we're supposed to be discussing here tonight. So thank you. I just wanted to put that in context.
All right, moving along. Jeffrey Saffel is also a red. Jeffrey, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. So, yeah, I'm not really for it in many different reasons why, but I don't think it's appropriate if we're trying to revitalize the Springfield area to have what in essence is almost a dead-end business there. I was over there today, and everybody knows that Lidl's there. Across the street from Lidl, where the old Title Max place used to be, there's a Peruvian chicken place actually coming from Springfield Mall to that location. So you can see some businesses coming there that would actually help the area. I think we should wait and get something better. Simple as that.
All right, thank you. Jim Drinkard, is that right?
Yes, that's right. So to me, as I look at this list, we have a usage statement at the beginning and then 5 other statements. And it seems to me that the usage statement is at war with the 5 other statements. I don't see, for example, how you can do a placemaking or gateway, beautiful piece of art or something at foot level And looming it over all is a big sign that says secure space that's viewable from I-95. It just seems like it seems like these 5 statements are bait to get us to go for something we don't really want.
Okay. Get more paper here. All right, next up, we have, oh no, she's Marta. Marta, you're yellow, so you're sort of can live with it. I don't know if you want to comment at all, or Marta Morrissey.
Sure, I do. Looking at the statement and understanding that this is not a thumbs up or thumbs down of whether we want a self-storage unit, but more whether it possibly could bring some benefits to the community. Because we've met with our, the residents closest to that area, and they're not sold on a self-storage unit, but they are wanting some changes to that area. If it could, so that's why I did more of the yellow. I have a lot of questions about it, hesitations about it.
You want to see something happen.
If those community benefits could be enough that it would make self-storage palatable, or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. That is the question. All right, let me see.
The next red would be Richard Drezner.
Richard Drezner, come on down. All right. You're up, Richard.
Can you hear me?
We can
Yes, we
hear you,
can.
Richard. Go right ahead.
You got the floor.
Hello?
Hello,
Yes,
Richard.
Richard. Can you hear us?
We can hear you. Go ahead. Feel like a radio talk show host. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Richard, I know you wanted, I'm
Yes.
sure you have something to say, but please say it.
Ed, I agree with the previous statements that I'm not really in favor of a self-storage facility on this site. And I know the staff is trying hard in 1 through 5 to put lipstick on the pig, but it just won't work. And I don't think it's sufficient. And at the very beginning, I think it was Tom who raised the issue of, we're really dealing with the issue of, do we want or do we not want a storage facility? And these principles probably could be dealt with later on. The main issue is the storage facility. And no matter how many amenities the staff believes it could add to the project, I don't think they're going to be sufficient to justify the project. I'm a little disappointed that no one has come forward in 20 years to propose something for this site. It is an important location, but I don't think we should give up on it and allow a storage facility. So put me down as red.
You are red. All right. You definitely got your red. Okay. All right. Then I
Last
see
response was Pamela Pineros. Yeah.
Pamela. Oh, wait, where's Tom Rickard?
I
Tom
didn't
Rickard
see.
was in there.
Oh, I'm
He was
sorry.
yellow.
My mistake. I missed Tom somehow. You're
Yeah, right here. Yeah, the more I listen, the more I agree with the previous statements that I think we would get all these 1 through 5 accoutrements out of anything that comes there. I think it's an important site, and I think the reaction from the locals is they're not interested in the self-storage. My other question was, if you're going to have all the self-storage upstairs and people are bringing pickup trucks, etc., where are they going to park? Functionally, how do you make that work? So those are my comments. I'll leave it at that.
And Ed, after you move to Pamela, Jane Kelly has also responded in yellow, but she sent it to me. She sent it to me privately. I've asked her to choose the setting to send it to all attendees as she responds to the rest of the questions. But I just want to let you know that Jane is probably also going to have something to add too, because she's voted as well.
Thank you.
Pamela, are you on? Pamela Pineros?
Yes. So my concern kind of lies on, I'm not sure if a self-storage is the best thing that could go there. Visually, I don't think it really makes sense over there. You have the town center that has been renovated and it looks nice. You have nice restaurants have been coming in there. You have Mike's nearby. That's a nice restaurant. Springfield Plaza has been renovated. It just seems a little weird to kind of just throw that in there. I'm yellow because you have mentioned that this space has had difficulty with success in the past. So if 1 through 5 happened, you know, I'd be interested to see, could it have success? But I think there would possibly be better options as far as what could go there. So that's where my concern lies.
Okay. That helps. That's clear. All right. All right. So then, is Jane, what was Jane's last name? Jane?
Kelly. Jane Kelly?
Are you on? Are you on there? Jane?
Jane, go ahead.
Sorry, I couldn't get unmuted there for a second.
That's okay.
So I'm between red and yellow. I think if, forced to have what isn't as aesthetic as many businesses could be, I think these 5 things are, great. I mean, that street obviously looks awful the way it is right now, with weeds growing down the one side of 95 and then no sidewalk. I mean, that all looks awful, and I could see that that would all benefit the area. But really it comes down to, do we want a storage unit when there's so many other more beautiful things that could go into that space?
Okay, thank you. I don't see anybody. Did I miss anybody?
This is John again, and I just noticed under the participant that Jim McCracken has a red X, that when you scroll over it, it says no. I don't know how he did that, and I don't know if that has a relationship to the vote, but I just see the red X there.
He was a red.
Yeah, it's not really
does
a
he-
vote.
did he-
It's just sort of taking the temperature and see the way
Yeah,
of
but I didn't know-
eliciting responses. So
Yeah, I didn't know if that was a
it
red
doesn't
X meant he
matter.
wanted to speak or not, so.
Yeah, and 1 or 2 other people like put in their colors twice. It doesn't matter. We're not. Don't worry about that.
This was a bit of a surprising outcome in that we weren't really going to vote on this lead-in statement. We were going to vote on what benefits people like. So I'm wondering if we should hear from some of the people who put up a green card to see. There's probably 5, 6 folks that put up a green card, so to speak. And I see Holly Doherty. Maybe you can share what your views are and why you're coming in green.
Sure, I'm happy to. Thanks, Liz. I think there are misconceptions about self-storage facilities. I mean, these are designed nowadays to look like office space, and it's often small businesses that need these units. They're not people that are moving or that have excess in their home, although they're customers also, but many small businesses need those facilities, and some actually run their business out of a self-storage unit. And the community has a lot of say in how the building itself is designed. And it can be a really good interim use as a step towards, you know, something 20, 25 years down the line, down the road when the area is ready for, you know, another redevelopment. So I think that this is a site that's been really difficult
Yeah.
to attract attention to redevelop. And we've got someone that's interested in making an investment there to improving the site, which I think would bring a lot of the advantages that are outlined that area could really use. And there are community groups that could use that ground floor area and really activate the site and attract people to the area.
Okay, thank you, Holly. Appreciate your feedback. All right. Next, well, we have Lee Lamba Skidmore. Is that right?
Yeah, Leah.
Leah?
Leah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'm here. So when you look at that site, and I think it's been more than 30 years that site's been open to development, but there have been no takers. So the opportunity that I see here is that maybe we are asking for some uses that are not conducive to anybody coming into that site for decades. And I agree with Holly that this is a good use. I will say that my father was a small businessman small business owner who used a self-storage facility to run his company out of. It was a cost-effective use. He didn't have much overhead. He could make a profit. And I don't see that kind of facility capability within this area that allows small business owners to grow and develop, to make that next step into more an office building kind of setup. So in that respect, you know, our opportunities for small businesses to develop, we are at that juncture right now in the demographics, given the pandemic and the great resignation that's going on with the population who's looking for other avenues of employment just to make money that they can enjoy doing. So to me, that land use would be great as a starter for a lot of businesses. And so that's why I support it.
Okay, thank you. All righty, moving to the next, we have Donald Tennant, I believe, is it green? Donald, are you there?
Yes, I am here. My rationale follows the others who just spoke with regard to it, probably Holly the best, in the sense that it's an eyesore as it is. It's a location where an office building in this market is never going to be built. And it could be that we're seeing a real reduction in the need for office space everywhere else. I think this is not the run-of-your-mill, clearly from the design that's being proposed at least, your run-of-mill storage facility with garage doors everywhere. It's an enclosed building that gives the appearance of the other buildings in that area. The only issue that I had with it from the onset was the red brick, which is not consistent with the other office building, with the hotel, or with most of downtown Springfield. But other than that, I think it's a good usage.
Thank you. Okay. Jonna, I'm not doing that right.
That's okay. It's Jonna. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is, I think, our third time this case has come before the task force. and it has made some changes. I really like the way you presented it tonight, better than the first two times. I kind of agree with all of the other green statements coming before me. I think for whatever reason, this part of the county's become the stepchild for the county. Just can't seem to get anything down in here of any great consequence. We tried with Kingstown, we tried with Brack. Everything's, for some reason they can get it in other part of the counties. The county just can't seem to get this part of the county developed with big commercial type stuff that benefits us. And so we just have to accept that. It's kind of like with the big overhead power lines. There's just some things you just can't do anything about. I think that in addition to what was said about the small businesses, there has been a great change that I've seen just in the last couple months, that even office spaces now have to open up. And I don't think that's going to change. They're going to physically be spacing out things, which means they have furniture they need to store, because they're not going to get rid of it, because there's hopes at some point they might be able to use it again. So I really think with the changing dynamics of office space, the little that we have in this end of the county, I really think that this could be something that, there is a market for out there. As much as I have not been in favor of storage units, this is an improvement over the orange ones that are one level or two levels. But yeah, I mean, I don't think we're going to ever get anything better. I've been through 4 or 5 of these Fairfax forwards, APRs, whatever, and Springfield just can't seem to get redeveloped. And it's a shame that they're getting it redeveloped every place else. So I think this is the best we're going to probably be able to do. It's better than what we have. So it's kind of a backwards way of saying, I give up, let's just do it and get it done.
Thank you. Let's see.
Carol Allen, I don't think Carol has spoken. Perhaps I'm mistaken about that.
I
don't believe
No,
Carol's
I,
spoken.
I haven't. Like some of the others, I've been down and looked at
Okay.
this area several times, and it's an eyesore the way it is. There's cars parked there. That's the only, I don't know if any of them are sort of dumped there, but it's storage, gravel. It backs up to the interstate. So from that perspective, it's not an attractive site for many uses. It's been vacant for decades. So it's not appealing it doesn't appear to be an appealing site for the current approved uses. I typically don't like storage units outside of industrial areas, particularly when we're looking in some areas and putting them into residential areas. This is commercial. It's commercial all around. And I think that I wasn't aware of small business owners using them for managing or running their business, but done properly, the community-based uses on the first floor can be appealing, can bring some business in there. It would be a nearby alternative for hotel guests to use. It might be an alternative for people who come into that office building on the other side, further down Brandon, for them to go in. And if you've got artists and craftspeople working in there, that in and of itself can be a draw if they're local people. And as word gets out, they will attract people to see their art, to buy their art, their crafts, and then use the coffee shop or whatever other facilities are there. So I think it has some potential. So that was why I looked at it as green. If it sits open for another 10, 15 years, looking the way it is. And I guess a question I have is, what could, with the way the comp plan is and the zoning is, what could be built by right on that parcel?
That's a good question. Leanna, not Leanna, I'm sorry. Laura, do you want to take a stab at that?
That's okay. We're close. Leanna,
Leanna, Laura, sorry.
It's late. It's fine. It's Monday. It's late.
One of those L's, I'm sorry.
So I'm actually going to defer to David because David has a little bit more information on the PDC uses. David, can you give a little more information on that?
Sure. Right now, it's when the hotel property was when the rezoning application for the hotel was approved, it was a was approved for a restaurant use. And there is an option right now to develop 125,000 square foot office building up to 160 feet right now as well.
But that's in the plan. I think the question was what can be built there today? It's a proffered.
What's the by right zoning? Yeah.
Right,
It's not by right, it's
it's
proffered zoning. It's proffered to a restaurant, a 10,000 square foot restaurant.
Well, that's become, yes, part of the zoning.
Okay.
So what is it zoned? So it allows for the restaurant, is that pretty much it?
It's zoned to the C6 district.
Okay, and so that allows certain commercial uses and
Right.
certainly the restaurant.
But you'd have to come through and amend the plan. You'd have to go through a proffered condition amendment.
Because right now you're saying it is zoned for, it's been approved for the restaurant.
Correct.
Well.
Thank you.
So the question is it a good restaurant site? Restaurants usually require good visibility and easy access. And so that might not be a site that's seen to meet those criteria.
Right, which
Office
is why
market.
they haven't built.
Office, I think we saw from Doug's development activity that we've got some vacant office now. We certainly have high office vacancy. I will say that the Economic Development Authority, but it probably won't be in time for this, is going to do a market assessment for Springfield in the Franconia area, but I would be surprised if it showed strong office demand, because we just did one for Richmond Highway, Huntington, and there's not strong office demand. So I think that is a fair question. What else could go there? Is there a market for what is allowed by right now? That's in part why we said, given that sort of sums up the given the challenges of this site, that kind of what is allowed to happen there, it's not a particularly strong market for what is allowed there. I don't think it would be desirable for a residential use. Nobody wants to live right up against the highway there. Anyway, so
Right, between the highway, the hotel, and an office building.
So anyways, I think this was good in that we got a lot of airing of sentiment from the task force. It's a little, it may seem, I'll just put this out as a process question. It seems perhaps not worthwhile to discuss these benefits given sort of the pulse taking that we did tonight, which I would say the majority was yellow or red with some strong reservations about that the benefits make, whatever the benefit list might be, makes much difference. I did hear some recognition that of the challenges of the site and that it's an eyesore, and you know, maybe there could be some positive results from it, and it's not your grandmother's self-storage kind of thing. But does anybody else want maybe turn it back over to the chair for other thoughts about where we are?
Well, I mean, it's 9 o'clock, so I don't think we're, just as a matter of time, I don't think we're going into
anything further.
the benefits here tonight.
Right.
But I guess we can talk about how to proceed. I think this has been very valuable to get a sense of what the task force is thinking. So we can figure out where we go from here. I'm not sure I have anything else intelligent.
Ed,
to
can I
say.
add something?
Carl, go ahead.
Ed, yeah, I would think that it might behoove the applicant and the community to work together to see what benefits might accrue to the surrounding community. That they've really been left out of all of these nice things we want to get for the site. But what happens to the people around them? And they need to talk to each other about that. And maybe there's something that can work in everybody's favor.
Carl, this is Tom. I know they've been working with the community, but they haven't been working with the Springfield Business Roundtable or whatever it's called. So the businesses need to be included in discussions with the developer, not just the local community.
This is Lynn Strobel. We have been working with the community, and I don't know if Marta or others want to comment on that. We're happy to meet with you said the Springfield Roundtable? I'm happy to do this, but this process, I know that there was some talk, Tom, about this is being crammed down people's throats. We started this in 2019 with the filing of an amendment, and I think that's an unfair categorization of how this process has been going forward. So I'll leave it at that, and we're happy to reach out to the business community. So thank you.
Yeah, maybe the Springfield Chamber of Commerce. I'm not sure what their exact name is, but I know there used to be a business group.
Yeah, so Tom, this is Holly Doherty, and Lynn has reached out to our Chamber of Commerce. And, this is something that we certainly support because, as I explained, there is a need for small businesses to have these types of facilities. And as long as the design is compatible with the surrounding area and the community support it, it's something that the business community does support.
Thank you, Holly.
Yeah, and just to be clear, Holly, you represent the Mount Vernon Lee Chamber of Commerce. Is that right?
That is correct, but you will remember that Lee District goes over into the geographic Springfield area. So I'm not speaking out of turn.
No, absolutely. And
that's why this committee
this is the
is
Lee
looking.
District SSPA task force. So yeah, absolutely. This is part of
Right.
Lee District, no question.
That's correct. Thank you.
All right.
I'd like to say, this is Marta. I would like to say that, the nominator has been very much in contact with the Springfield Civic Association, using us sort of as an arm, as the outreach to all the residents that are local to this nomination. So they have been very much asking for the opinions of residents. So, my hat goes off to them. They've been very engaged with the residents that are most local to this project.
Thank you, Marta.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, I don't know who's speaking.
it's Dan Lagana. I apologize.
Oh, Dan. Yes, hi.
I'm speaking as a guest. I just wanted to give some background so folks maybe to just revisit why we put this in the we supported putting this in the process to begin with and how it got there. I think the general agreement was, at first, it seems really strange and inappropriate for a self-storage unit to be placed here. But upon considering the site in the market in general, and this was pre-COVID, we didn't know what could go there. And we were concerned that the excessive concentration of retail and office in the Springfield CVC, in addition to the lack of mass transit, which is usually a prerequisite for higher intensity development, we didn't really have a good solution or know what we could put there. And so the self-storage application prompted a question. And that was the genesis of what prompted us to move this into the process. In doing that, we considered, and after meeting with the applicant, we had a few, rules of the road, if you will, that this would truly have to be unique. And I think staff has presented that if we ever did move forward, the consideration would have to be a unique application and provide extensive benefit both to the businesses, and to the community. And lastly, we would have to, there would have to be outreach would be one of the critical components, both to the business community and to the local surrounding Springfield Civic Association. Understanding anticipating some of the very strong and understandable concerns about putting a self-storage unit here. But we kept coming back to that original question, which is really what could go here. And just to provide some additional context there, the office market generally, and I'll speak in pre-COVID terms, was, for lack of a better term, not dead, but it was highly specific and tailored to particular tenants in particular locations, especially around activity centers, which happen to be around transit stations or other areas of substantial commercial development. Areas like Springfield, unfortunately, and Kingstown are not desirable locations for office, unfortunately. The office building adjacent to this site is 60% occupied. I don't know who holds the loan on the building, but at 60%, as many commercial mortgage-backed securities it's difficult to sustain put it this way, it's hard to sustain payment on your loan at a vacancy rate that high. And this is pretty consistent, not just here in Springfield, but nationally. And then the second thing is this explosive growth then of last mile shipping. And I don't mean last mile shipping in the sense that it's an Amazon truck or a warehouse, which is truly last mile shipping, but the actual small business need for immediate and proximal storage facilities. It's grown exponentially, or exponential is a strong word, but it's grown significantly with the advent of home-based businesses, which have grown themselves substantially over the last 10 years, especially. And local business owners rely heavily on an adjacency of a self-storage facility or of an easy place where they can quickly come and go, which ironically means that there's a little bit more demand for self-storage near some commercial uses. And so that's what prompted us to put this into the program. But before we put it into the program, we actually requested that staff conduct an extensive analysis beforehand. So we didn't just put it into the program. We asked that staff really go through the works and pick this apart, because we want to make sure we're getting this right. Anyway, that's just the background I wanted to provide for the Land Use Committee, and I hope you find it useful. Thanks.
Thank you, Dan. I see that Gail Niddle from the public has her hand up.
Yes, I just had a
Gail?
question, and if you could tell me, or Holly or Tom Sachs, they keep mentioning the Chamber of Commerce. I've had trouble contacting anybody on the Chamber of Commerce. I was told when I asked if they could speak to our civic association that they had reorganized, that there was a temporary chairman, and I'm not sure how many local businesses even belong to it. So I would be interested in that information.
So, Carol, this is Holly Doherty, and think there's some transition going on right now at the Springfield Chamber, but I'm happy to talk to you, and I can send you my contact information.
Yes, I was just curious as how you could speak for the local businesses if they're in transition, and I don't even know that they're meeting.
Because I represent the Mount Vernon Lee Chamber of Commerce, which covers all of Lee District.
Okay, but I think that the businesses in our area are the ones that need to be talking
Well,
about this.
We have many members in the Springfield area, so I'm representing those businesses.
Okay.
Yeah, the two chambers sort of overlap, but they're not mutually exclusive.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Gail. Okay, is there anyone else with anything to say before we conclude? Don't hear anyone. I do want to mention that there's a survey that you'll be receiving a link to regarding, I haven't actually seen the survey yet myself, but as I understand it, it sort of drawn our experiences with the task force and, looking forward to the future of this process and, how it may evolve. And so I've been sent a link for that I will pass along to members of the task force. So keep an eye out for that, and please I'm told it takes about 10 minutes to complete the survey. So keep an eye out for that. Is there anybody else who has anything to say before we adjourn? Hearing nothing, I will thank everyone for your participation. And
Ed, are we having another meeting next month?
there is a meeting scheduled for December 20th. I'm not entirely sure if that is going forward. I will be in touch as things develop.
Okay, thanks. Happy
All
Thanksgiving,
right.
buddy.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. And appreciate everyone's time. Good night.
Thanks. Good night. Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye.